If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. All right, so let's talk about something that Browns fans have been waiting on for what feels like forever, the long-awaited return of right tackle Jack Conklin. Yeah, that Jack Conklin, the big man who was supposed to be one of the anchors of this offensive line when Cleveland brought him in a few years back. If you've been following this team for any amount of time, you know the story by heart at this point. When Conklin is healthy, he's an absolute force. The problem? The man just hasn't been able to stay on the field. Injuries have been his shadow, haunting almost every season since he landed in Cleveland. And this week, in a game across the pond in London, Browns fans finally got to see him suit up again. And folks, he didn't just play. He reminded everyone why his name still carries weight among offensive line enthusiasts. Let's rewind for a second, because context matters here. When the Browns signed Conklin prior to the 2020 season, the move was seen as a statement, a signal that Cleveland was serious about protecting whoever was under center and about establishing the kind of dominant, trench-first mentality that has defined some of the NFL's most physical teams. Conklin came in with credentials, a reputation built in Tennessee as one of the better right tackles in the league. But since arriving in Cleveland, it's been a roller coaster of promise and pain. He's never played a full season in a Browns uniform. Back in 2020, things actually looked great for a while. He suited up for 15 games, anchoring the right side of the line with consistency and power. Then came 2021, and like so many stories in the NFL, it was the year of what-ifs. A serious injury cut his season to just 7 games. And every Browns fan who's been around long enough knows exactly how those seasons feel, like the football gods are just playing cruel jokes at this point. Then came 2022. 14 games. Not bad at all. In fact, that season gave hope that maybe, just maybe, Conklin could find a rhythm again, stay healthy, and remind everyone why he earned that big contract in the first place. But hope is fragile in Cleveland. When 2023 kicked off, disaster struck almost immediately. One of the opening plays of the season, boom, torn ACL. Out for the year. It was one of those moments that make you just sink into the couch in silence, knowing how big that loss was going to be for the team. The offensive line lost not just a starter, but a leader, a technician, a guy who knows the grind and sets the tone for everyone else in that huddle. And once again, the Browns had to move on without him, reshuffling, patching, and praying for stability that never quite seemed to come. Fast forward to 2024. Conklin makes his way back, defying the odds like he's done before. You could tell the rehab had been brutal, but he fought his way through it. He managed to play in 12 games, not a full season, but enough to show that there was still gas in the tank. His return wasn't just about his individual performance. It was about what his presence does for everyone else. A veteran like that, steady hands, cool under pressure, brings calm to a line that's had to constantly adjust and adapt to chaos. But just when it looked like the Browns would finally start the 2025 season with a bit of consistency, fate threw another punch. Conklin got hurt in the first game, forcing him to miss 4 straight weeks. Browns fans sighed, shook their heads, and braced themselves for another stretch of offensive line musical chairs. So when Cleveland landed in London this week to face the Minnesota Vikings, there was this cautious optimism in the air. The Browns were struggling offensively. They were starting rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel, a kid making his first NFL start, and doing it across the Atlantic, no less. And they desperately needed stability up front. That's where Conklin came in. It wasn't just that he was back. It was that his timing was perfect. This team needed protection, needed experience, needed a presence that could make the rookie feel like he wasn't stepping into a war zone every time he dropped back. And you know what? Conklin delivered. Big time. According to Next Gen Stats, he dropped back 36 times during the game, and in all those reps, he allowed just 1 pressure. That's it, 1 and 0 sacks. That's incredible, especially for someone who hadn't played in weeks and was coming off yet another injury. You could see the difference right away. From the first quarter to the final whistle, Conklin looked poised, technically sharp, and fully engaged. His footwork was crisp, his hand placement solid, and his anchor looked as strong as it's been since before the ACL tear. Sure, the Browns still lost a tight one, 21-17, but if you're looking for positives in that game, Conklin's performance jumps off the tape. You have to remember, this wasn't an easy task. He was lined up against a Vikings front that's been aggressive and creative in their pass rush schemes. They dialed up pressures, they moved their defensive ends around, and they tried to exploit any rust Conklin might have had. But he stayed disciplined. He wasn't lunging, he wasn't overcompensating. He was playing smart football. That's what separates a veteran from just a serviceable lineman. Conklin made it look like he'd never missed a beat. For a rookie quarterback like Dillon Gabriel, that kind of protection is priceless. When you've got a veteran right tackle holding down your blind side, you can play with just a little more confidence, and you could see it in Gabriel's demeanor as the game went on. He stood tall in the pocket, trusted his protection, and wasn't constantly running for his life like we've seen from so many young quarterbacks in bad situations. Now, let's be clear, the offensive line as a unit still has work to do. While Conklin was outstanding, the left side was another story. KT Leviston, filling in at left tackle, struggled with penalties, drawing multiple flags that stalled key drives. The Browns' rhythm was thrown off several times because of that, and even though Gabriel managed to keep the offense competitive, those mistakes were costly. He was sacked twice, and both times the breakdowns came from the other side, not Conklin's. It's a reminder that offensive line play is a symphony. It only works when everyone's in sync. And right now, the Browns' line is a bit out of tune. The injuries haven't helped. Dawg Jones, the young left tackle who showed so much promise early on, is out for the season after knee surgery. That's a huge blow. Since then, the Browns have had to patch things together with Cornelius Lucas, Leviston, and the recently acquired Thayer Munford Jr. They even made a move to bring in Cam Robinson from the Houston Texans, a trade that raised some eyebrows, but made sense given how thin they were at tackle. For now, though, Leviston's still getting the starts, even if the leash feels shorter by the week. Still, seeing Conklin back out there, moving well, communicating with the guards, and setting the tone in the trenches, that's something to build on. You could tell the coaching staff trusted him immediately. They didn't ease him in. They threw him right into full pass protection duty, and he handled it like a pro. This kind of performance isn't just about grades or stats. It's about confidence, both his own and the team's. If he can stay healthy, and yes, that's the big if that has haunted every conversation about Jack Conklin, he could once again become one of the cornerstones of this offense. The Browns need that more than ever. This team's identity has always leaned on physicality. Even when the quarterback situation has been shaky, even when the play calling has been questioned, the one thing fans have always clung to is that idea of toughness up front. When the offensive line dominates, everything else opens up, the run game, the play action, even the defense gets a lift because the team controls tempo. And Conklin's presence, his experience, his leadership, can bring some of that old-school edge back. So yeah, the Browns may have lost in London. The scoreline hurts. But the story within the story, that's where you find hope. Conklin's return wasn't just about getting a body back. It was about getting a piece of the team's identity back. Watching him stonewall rushers, seeing him pull on running plays and open lanes like he used to. It was a reminder of what this team can look like when the offensive line is intact. You could see it on the sidelines too. Every time the offense came off the field, Conklin was talking to Gabriel, to the guards, to the line coach. Constant communication. That's what leaders do. They set standards, they hold teammates accountable, and they lift the guys around them. It might sound dramatic, but for a team that's been through as much turbulence as the Browns, one steady presence like that can change the energy in the locker room. The next few weeks will be key. Conklin's conditioning will be tested, and with the Browns heading into a stretch of tough opponents, his ability to stay on the field will be crucial. The team will hope that Cam Robinson can settle in on the left side, which would finally give Cleveland some stability at both tackle spots. Imagine that, a healthy Conklin on the right, a steady Robinson on the left, and the interior trio of Bitonio, Teller, and Posick doing their thing in the middle. That's a line capable of bullying defenses and protecting any quarterback in the league. For now, though, Browns fans can exhale a little. They've seen this movie before. The injuries, the setbacks, the frustrations, but every so often, there's a performance that reminds everyone why it's worth keeping faith. Jack Conklin's return in London was one of those moments. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't headline-grabbing like a 4-touchdown performance or a game-winning drive. But it was fundamental. It was the kind of performance that football purists appreciate. the kind that sets the foundation for everything else. If he stays on the field, if he builds on this, the Browns' offensive line could quietly transform from a question mark to a strength again. And for a rookie quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, and for a fan base that's been through years of heartbreak and false dawns, that's the kind of stability that could make all the difference. So yeah, the Browns might have flown home from London with a loss, but in the long run, they may have gained something far more valuable: the return of Jack Conklin, and with him, the return of belief in what this team can still become. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Alright, so grab your coffee, sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely mind-blowing. This isn't one of those random off-season rumors that show up on Twitter at 2 in the morning and vanish by sunrise. No, this is confirmed. The Cleveland Browns have just pulled off one of the most shocking moves in recent NFL history. Tyreek Hill. Yes, that Tyreek Hill, the cheetah himself, is officially a Cleveland Brown. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about one of the fastest, most explosive wide receivers in the entire league, a guy who can change a game in the blink of an eye, who has spent his career burning secondaries and leaving defenders grasping at air, now wearing orange and brown. It almost doesn't feel real, right? But it is. It's happening. The news dropped like a bombshell earlier this morning, and the NFL world has been in complete chaos ever since. Nobody saw this coming. Not the analysts, not the insiders, not even the fan accounts that usually catch wind of something before it becomes official. There had been whispers that something weird was going on in Miami, that Tyreek wasn't entirely happy with the direction of the Dolphins' offense this season, especially after a few frustrating losses and the ongoing tension over Tua's inconsistency. But a trade to Cleveland? Nobody predicted that. It's one of those moves that make you check your phone twice, refresh the page, and think, wait, what did I just read? And yet, as crazy as it sounds, when you start to unpack it, it actually begins to make sense in a twisted, NFL kind of way. The Browns, despite having one of the most polarizing quarterbacks in the league in Deshaun Watson, have been desperate for a true, game-changing wide receiver. Amari Cooper has been solid, dependable, professional, but he's not a guy who terrifies defenses anymore. Elijah Moore has flashes, sure, but the Browns needed a spark, something electric, someone who can make defensive coordinators lose sleep. And let's be honest, Tyreek Hill is exactly that. He's not just a receiver, he's a one-man panic button. Every time he's on the field, you can feel the defense tense up. That's the kind of energy Cleveland's offense has been missing since, well, forever. What makes this even wilder is that just last offseason, everyone thought the Browns were content to build around the pieces they already had. They invested heavily in the defense, loaded up the front seven, and were banking on Watson to rediscover his Houston form. But maybe the front office realized that defense alone wasn't going to win them playoff games in a conference stacked with offensive firepower. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Every single one of those guys can light up the scoreboard in a hurry. The Browns were missing that kind of offensive explosiveness, and it looks like they finally decided to swing big. And man, did they swing big. The details of the trade are still being processed, but from what insiders are whispering, it sounds like Cleveland gave up a package that includes multiple first-round picks and a couple of players, likely one of their young defensive backs, and possibly a future second-rounder too. It's a steep price, no doubt, but when you're talking about Tyreek Hill, a six-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion, and one of the most dangerous weapons the league has ever seen, that's the kind of move you make if you're serious about contending right now. The Browns are clearly done waiting. They want to win this year, and they just made a move that screams all in. But the real story here, the part that's going to keep sports radio hosts and YouTube commentators busy for weeks, is what this means for both sides. For Cleveland, it's the beginning of a completely new era of offense. Imagine Watson dropping back, scanning the field, and seeing Tyreek streaking down the sideline. The crowd at First Energy Stadium will lose its mind. And for Miami, it's the end of a short but memorable chapter. Tyreek's arrival there had completely transformed the Dolphins' offense. He made Tua look like a superstar at times, turned that team into a legit playoff contender, and brought an energy to Miami that hadn't been felt in decades. Losing him, that's going to hurt. Badly. There are already rumors swirling about what caused the breakup between Tyreek and the Dolphins. Some say it was purely financial. Miami simply couldn't afford to keep everyone with big extensions coming up for key defensive players. Others are hinting at personal frustrations, that Tyreek wasn't happy with how often he was being used as a decoy, or that he was clashing with offensive coaches over game plans. Whatever the reason, the end result is that the Browns somehow managed to swoop in at the perfect time, ready to take advantage of Miami's situation. And now they've got their guy. What's fascinating about this move is how it might change the perception of the Browns organization entirely. For years, Cleveland has been a franchise haunted by its own history. Endless rebuilds, quarterback controversies, disappointing finishes. Even with the addition of Watson, they couldn't seem to shake that same old Browns label. But bringing in a superstar like Tyreek Hill is a statement. It says, we're not the old Browns anymore. It says they're ready to fight toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Bengals, all those teams that have dominated AFC headlines for years. This trade isn't just about football, it's about identity. It's about proving to the world that Cleveland is ready to be a real contender. And man, you can already feel the buzz from the fan base. Browns Twitter is going insane. People are changing their profile pictures, editing Tyreek into Cleveland jerseys, posting memes, and debating what number he'll wear. It's total chaos, but the good kind. The kind of energy that comes when hope and excitement collide. Because let's face it, this city has been waiting for a moment like this for decades. They've seen stars come and go, seasons start with promise and end in heartbreak. But this feels different. This feels like something real. From a pure football perspective, this also opens up all kinds of possibilities for Kevin Stefanski's offense. Think about it. Defenses can't just stack the box anymore to stop Nick Chubb. They can't blitz with the same recklessness because if they leave Tyreek one-on-one, it's over. Done. Touchdown. That kind of threat changes everything. It forces defenses to play honest, spreads the field, and gives Watson the kind of spacing he's thrived with in the past. Suddenly, Cleveland's offense goes from predictable to downright terrifying. And if they can keep that defense healthy, the Browns might just be in the conversation as one of the most complete teams in the league. Of course, it's still Cleveland, and skepticism comes naturally. Some fans are worried about chemistry, about how Tyreek's bold personality will mix with Watson's complicated reputation and Stefanski's calm, reserved leadership style. That's a fair question. Tyreek is passionate, vocal, and sometimes unpredictable. He plays with emotion, and that can be both a blessing and a curse. But if this team can channel that energy the right way, if they can keep everyone on the same page, it might just be the perfect storm. Sometimes, all it takes is one move, one superstar, to flip a franchise's destiny. And honestly, the timing couldn't be more perfect. The AFC North is a battlefield this year. The Ravens look strong, the Bengals are always dangerous, and the Steelers are quietly improving. The Browns couldn't afford to stand still. They needed something to separate themselves from the pack, something that would make every defensive coordinator in the division panic on game week. Well, mission accomplished. Tyreek Hill in a Browns uniform does exactly that. You can bet every team in the AFC just circled their next matchup with Cleveland in red ink. You can already imagine the highlight reels, the crowd eruptions, the late-game heroics. You can picture the camera zooming in on Hill after a 75-yard bomb, grinning under that helmet as the Dawg Pound loses its collective mind. It's cinematic. It's storybook. It's the kind of move that will define this era of Browns football. And no matter how it turns out, whether it leads to a Super Bowl run or just another chapter in Cleveland's roller coaster history, it's a move that everyone will be talking about for years. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!